Hey Zwifters, and welcome to another episode of the Zwiftcast, and it's a special episode coming from Eurobike, and I'm joined in the flesh live by my one of my usual co-conspirators, Shane Miller. G'day, mate.
G'day, Simon. Good to meet you in person, finally.
Indeed, really good to see you in the flesh, and a very special guest for this special edition. I'm joined by D C Rainmaker, the legendary Rainmaker, a veritable god in sports tech. Hi, Ray.
That's quite the intro. Good to have you guys here in Eurobike and see you guys in person.
So I'm going to start with Ray. Ray, this is a podcast for Zwifters, so we're very interested in the indoor riding scene. It strikes me that the indoor riding scene is one of the most vibrant and innovative areas of the entire bike industry. Do you think that's true?
I think so. I think we've seen, especially over the last, I'd say, 18 months or so, maybe 2 years, really just an explosion of product options, sort of similar to what we saw with power meters over the last 2 years as well. But I think this year was just a huge boom for affordable trainers that do cool sports technology stuff as opposed to being just kind of more of the same. We got things like the Flux and others that are really pushing not just the technological boundaries, but also the price boundaries, which I think is just as important as technology. This is the best time to buy a trainer, not this week or next week or even this month, but I think late October is going to be the best time we've ever seen in the history of trainers to buy a trainer. You have the most options out there. The prices are what they're going to be for the year, but I think going to next Eurobike, to see companies react to what Tacx has done in the past 2 months between the road feel and the Flux will be really cool. I think we're going to, and I don't know what's coming on the road, but I can just look at that and go, Tacx basically like threw the whatever at the wall and said, game on, folks. And this past summer between the different announcements, and I think you're going to see people react to that in interesting ways. The
competition is not only now on functionality, but massively on price. There's a kind of smart trainer war out there, isn't there?
The question always comes up, which smart trainer should I buy? And the next, I guess, the question I ask people is, what's your budget? That's the first question. And everybody wants the top-end functionality at a mid-range price. So what we're seeing here this week has been some trainers with that kind of functionality, but we hope. We haven't ridden them yet.
It looks to me, and we'll get into some specific trainer stuff later on in the podcast, but it looks to me like the kind of biggest launch at Eurobike is the Flux from Tacx. Ray, in brief, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think from a trainer standpoint, that is definitely the biggest splash in the water. I think they've nailed that price point that you're talking about in terms of that features to price to quietness. It's really impressive.
And just as impressive is the Tacx booth, which is enormous, a glossy double-decker affair. If the size of your booth at Eurobike is an index of how well the company's doing and how confident it's feeling, then Tacx looks to be in fine fettle. Well, I'm now in the Tacx booth, which is a lovely space, very large, lots of friendly people here, lots of very nice hospitality, and I'm with a senior Tacx guy, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. So, you are?
My name is Hilko Schravenhoff, also a Zwift rider, of course. Yeah, welcome to the Eurobike Tacx booth.
Now, I was lucky enough to spend some time with D C Rainmaker this morning, a very influential figure. He is incredibly impressed with the Flux, the Tacx Flux. He thinks it could be a Kickr killer, and everybody's been looking for the product that's going to really, really compete hard against the Kickr. It's extremely attractively priced. If it's anywhere near as good as the Neo in terms of accuracy, it's going to be a really, really impressive product. But Ray was worried that you're just not going to be able to deliver in sufficient quantities. Is that a worry that you share? Can you get this trainer out in thousands of units in September and October?
Well, in this one, I have to be a little bit. We see the enthusiasm on this product for the customer, and yes, we do believe it's as you announce it, it's a Kickr killer. The good thing about this product is absolutely quiet, and that's something our competition doesn't have, or they have it in a different way, but they still make a lot of sound, and the price is really, really, really well positioned. So we see again a lot of demands. The announcement that we have said is that we can deliver from October. And yes, we will deliver from October, but it's always a demand that is happening. And you're talking about thousands, but looking to the show and the feedback, I think it will be more than thousands. It will be around the 10,000 of the demands that we have. So the demand will be enormous. So yeah.
Can you meet that demand? I mean, can you meet that demand in those numbers?
In 10,000, I have to be honest, also with the production of the Neo, that's still a great success. It will be very difficult to supply everybody who wants to have a Flux. That's the honest question I have.
Now, I mean, your manufacturing base is in Holland, which is fantastic in many ways. People sometimes are suspicious of companies who ship out all their manufacturing to China. But do you think manufacturing in the Far East may be able to help you meet the kind of demand that you're seeing?
No, that answer is a no. We are very keen on our quality and the way we produce our products. So that's a no. It's like in the training market. It's always you have a time frame in the winter, and the winter in Europe, America, it's different than in Australia and countries like South Africa. So we have a time frame to deliver in October, and we are really keen that our product is good and stable. So that's our first priority. And then sometimes you have 1 month delay, and that could be costly because the winter is very short.
The indoor riding world, I don't know how long you've worked at Tacx, but the indoor riding world has never been more exciting, has it?
100%. I agree 100% on that. If you walk here on the show, you see that there is so much excitement now on indoor training. If you talk to consumers, they're just excited about hearing other stuff, and I think Zwift helps also on that because everybody hears on the social media channels about Zwift. You just talked about DC, but also Shane Miller, well known. Those people make indoor training excitement, so they're very important for us to get people excited about indoor training, and not only in winter, but we also see now that people are starting to train in summertime. Even it's like 20-25 degrees in their cellar. But hey, that's a great thing and a great development for everybody.
Thank you very much for your time and for being so honest. It's been great to meet the Tacx guys face to face.
Hey, I agree, and enjoy Zwifting.
This is where companies come to make a splash. There's lots of press here, and they know if they say something here, it's going to get lots of attention. And that's why we see so many trainers announced either just before or at Eurobike. But one thing I wanted to explore with the guys was what seems to be an increasing gap between trainer announcement and trainer availability. And I think, Ray, perhaps the most glaring example of this right at the moment is the Hammer, which was announced, I think, way back in May with a huge splash at the UCI headquarters. The company, again, are going to be here at Eurobike talking it up. But we're not going to expect to see this trainer anywhere near before the end of October, maybe even later. Are the gaps between announcements and availability now just getting too long?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, people went into this year kind of trying to follow the model that Wahoo did last year with the Kickr Snap being announced in June and available in the August, September timeframe. But I think they kind of fumbled on that plan for this year. That was sort of the idea, is that companies would announce all this stuff in the May, June timeframe, and that by the time we got to where we are now at Eurobike, they'd be like, we're shipping, we're ready to go, and that way. And there's a lot of reasons for that beyond just having trainers available in people's hands for the trainer season, but also like a marketing side of that, where this podcast being a perfect example of that, we're talking about trainers and people go, okay, I'm ready to purchase by the end of this, and they go online and they can pick anything because it's all in stock. Whereas now that's not at all the case. And I think like the Hammer, as you mentioned, they announced that at a big event back in late April, early May, and here we sit in August, honestly, no closer to shipping than we were then. And I think there's a couple reasons in their particular case. One is that they sort of decided to devote effort and resources to the Magnus trainer, which is their mid-range trainer they just announced last week. And I can see that from a business side why they want to do that. That sort of makes sense. And I think they've had some, I don't want to call them setbacks, but changes in architectural direction within the internals of the Hammer that have sort of set them back a little bit on timelines. But I think Tacx, we talked talk about the Flux, is really that same challenge there as well, where they're not going to be shipping till realistically mid-late October if absolutely nothing goes wrong in their production. And that's just for continental Europe. It's another 4 weeks until the shipping containers arrive. The very first one, that is, arrives in the US. But that shipping container only holds about 500 Flux units, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. And who knows how long until they get all the way down to Australia. But you guys, I guess, got till next year, next season anyways. You're kind of like in the best possible situation for trainers. By time like everything's all settled over the course of the northern hemisphere winter, you're ready to roll.
Yeah, but it remains frustrating, Shane. I think reading about new trainers, getting excited about new trainers, and then you go on to the, looking for availability, looking to click to buy, and the damn things are not there. I mean, what are the companies up to? Is it deliberate, or is it just stuff goes wrong?
Look, a smart trainer is a large purchase. In Australia, it's up to $2,600 once you factor in the entire purchase. That's a big... So I'm thinking what they want to do is build the hype and get people locked into purchasing their item early, because there's so much coming out now. There's a lot of action in this space, and I guess even if the manufacturing will take a few more months, and they might know this, they need to announce it. They need to get the person to commit to buying their trainer. But it's just the delivery. Now, these things are hard.
So you think it's a bit of a psychological game that they're playing?
It's marketing. If you don't come to market with something and you're quiet, you won't be known. There'll be so much hype around the other trainer. Now, we've seen this. There's a couple of, I won't mention them, there's a couple of manufacturers here with smart trainers. They're betering them, they're showing them here, but we haven't heard of them. So even if they should have been announcing like everyone else, like everyone's excited for the Flux, everyone's excited for the Hammer, even if we can't get a hold of those, some people have already purchased that in their mind. They've already committed to that. It's just waiting to hit. And these are, there's delay. There's reasons for delays. These things are hard to build. And I'll reference back to when the patent there expired on SRM, it took a long time for people to solve the same problem and come to market with a product that people could buy at a cheaper price point. So we're seeing that in the trainers stuff as well. They're trying to replicate what Wahoo and Tacx have done. They're struggling. And there's delays. I
think if you look at sort of that delay, it's an interesting effect for people like Wahoo, right? So Wahoo announced the Kickr 2 or the new Kickr this past week, and it's available immediately. Like, it's already in stock. Like, it was the Apple-esque sort of timed announcement of, okay, it's announced, and by the way, it's already available to ship now. And now in their case, they weren't making a massive jump. They weren't making a truly brand new end-to-end trainer. They were taking what they had and redefining it, and they had more time to do that. But it's selling units. Like, for people that want a trainer now, that's available now. And if you ask me the same question in 3 months, then I would probably say that may not be the best answer in terms of your money. If again the Flux can do its thing, but for today, that's probably one of the best bangs for your buck that you can actually put your hands on and take home.
And it must be said that Wahoo were a bit of an honourable exception in this large gap between announcement and availability. And indeed, the updated Kickr is available immediately. And apparently is a great deal quieter, or perhaps not quieter, should we say less irritating than the Kickr 1, because the high, whiny, drony noise apparently is gone. So I headed over to the Wahoo stand to ask them how they did it. So I've now made my way to the Wahoo booth, and I'm sitting with a very important person. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself.
My name's Chip Hawkins. I'm the founder of Wahoo Fitness.
So you don't get much better than that, listeners. This is straight from the horse's mouth. Chip, let's start with the new Kickr, which I've seen variously called Kickr 2 and Kickr 2016, but it's definitely a new Kickr. And I guess the big news about it is it's not as noisy as the old Kickr.
Yeah, that's correct. We spent a lot of time fine-tuning the system to get the noise out of it. For those that have owned and used an old Kickr, it's not terribly noisy, but the worst part was you had a bit of a whine as you got to a higher speed, and we've eliminated that completely, and we've brought the general noise down as well. It's definitely I believe noise has become more of an issue than it really is. If you were at high speeds with the older Kickr, it could get a bit annoying, I'll admit. But at normal speeds, anything less than 20 miles an hour, I use Zwift, I watch TV sometimes, I use a MacBook, and I'm at about a third volume. So it's really not, it wasn't that bad, it's a whole lot better. It's actually pretty quiet now.
It is, and I think anybody who's seen the excellent comparison video done by D C Rainmaker will agree that the kind of problem, if it ever was a problem, but it probably was a problem to some people, has been solved. Zwifters tend to be a kind of geeky bunch, or at least quite a lot of them are. So would you just tell us, Chip, how you solved the problem, giving us as much detail as you feel able to?
Yeah, absolutely. Believe it or not, I think we were reaching sonic velocity in the pinion gear on our belt. So we have a Gates carbon drive belt, and in order to get the 8-to-1 gear ratio and get the flywheel up and the inertia up, we have to use a really small pinion. And so the velocity that belt is going into those pinion gears is just really high. So, we worked a lot of magic. We worked with the Gates guys, and we came up with a tooth profile that allows that air to escape without coming into that creating that whine. And then we added a lot of internal baffling and so the whine is gone just by a tooth profile change. Well, it actually took a lot of work. And then adding the internal baffling is what brought the general noise level down.
We adore that level of detail, I have to tell you. That is just fantastic to hear. Wahoo and the Kickr in particular occupy a really interesting place in what's happened in indoor training over the last couple of years, and they were, certainly an early mover, if not first mover, in this entirely new product category that's been invented. And we'll talk a little bit about the indoor scene in a few moments, but you're no longer kind of king of the hill. You've got now lots of competitors and they're snapping at your heels. How does that feel?
Oh, it's not something we're not used to. As a small company, a startup, really, we've done a lot of innovative products, and what you find is you get a couple of years generally of being the one guy, and then you get a lot of follow-ons, and in a lot of cases you wake up companies that had not innovated. And I think in the case of the indoor cycling arena, we've woke them up in a really big way. We've got tons of companies that have been around and have a lot of resources, and they're now pouring them into their trainers, and they recognize that in a lot of ways, I think we created a market that there really wasn't a smart. I say we created a market. The CompuTrainer's been around, I think, since the '80s, but they just didn't capitalize on what I saw as the opportunity. So it's. Yeah, we appreciate competition. We'll continue to innovate. I still believe we have the best trainer out there.
And the Wahoo, Kickr, and Zwift confluence has been industry defining or sector defining, I think. I mean, the two were very close bedmates, bedfellows, if you like, and they both helped each other. But now the category has grown way beyond that. One of the ways you've managed to distinguish yourself is by getting the endorsement of Team Sky. How important is pro team endorsement to a company like Wahoo?
Oh, it's huge. It really it allows us. Well, it put us on the scene in a lot of ways, and it's a great story. That was it's been several years now, but some of the first prototypes of the Kickr went to Training Peaks in Boulder. And it just happened that about the week they got there, a few of the Team Sky riders, the bigger Team Sky riders, just jumped on them, and luckily for us, fell in love. And so it's been a great partnership ever since. They've driven a lot of the design.
A very valuable relationship with lots of mutual benefits. And you maybe won't answer this question. Does it cost you a lot of money?
I won't comment on how much it costs. I will say it's changed over the years. At first it was really about the fact that the riders came to us, the riders wanted it, and the coaches wanted it, and Team Sky has grown as a business, and we've grown as a business, so we've maintained the relationship, and it's still a great relationship.
You came into this sector with a reputation for innovation. The Kickr was an incredibly innovative product, which, as you rightly say, has kind of woken up some of the sleeping giants of the industry. Now let's take, for an example, a company based in Holland. They really seem to have massively raised their game over the last couple of years, and they're releasing really innovative products and have moved the top of the market even higher. Is Wahoo going to respond? I think the reason I asked that question is some commentators were slightly surprised that the new Kickr wasn't more new. if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I still feel like we have the best trainer out there. I mean, Tacx has done a great job, that company in Holland has done a great job of highlighting the fact that they've created false inertia. You know, they are able to take a very lightweight flywheel and make it feel like inertia. I really, I would love to do a Pepsi challenge. Put on some blinders and ride on that and ride on ours, and I think we'd come away every time the winner. And so we've got to counter that message. Could we have done that? Absolutely. Do I think that it's better? Absolutely not. So we will continue to innovate. It won't be by taking the inertia out of our system. It'll be by doing some other really cool things.
Chip, this space is immensely exciting, is it not?
It is. I absolutely love to see. I mean, I remember sitting in my basement on a CompuTrainer 6 or 7 years ago thinking this is really bad and I've got to do something about it. And it's fantastic to see where it's come. It's fantastic to see the likes of Zwift created from a category that didn't exist. And it's really cool to feel like you've had a part in creating something so big.
Well, it's interesting to see what effect Zwift has had on the entire market, in particular trainer manufacturers. And I want to ask both the guys for a kind of quick opinion on that. Judging by the time they spent at Eurobike this year, what has been the Zwift effect on trainer manufacturers? Has it given a massive shot in the arm to what was previously a fairly moribund market?
I think it has. I think it's so, like, if you turn back the clock to Trainer Road, for example, which, is more about training to power zones and power and intensity levels, that had a very decisive effect on people using power, even if they didn't have a power meter. So you had to use a speed and cadence sensor and getting all that data from a trainer to predict power using power curves that people hadn't really done before in any sort of mass market way. And that had people thinking about trainers, but not necessarily buying a smart trainer that could control their power. Whereas this now has people saying, okay, I want a trainer that Zwift can control and I can feel those hills. And that's become this, everything about Zwift, when you talk about from a marketing standpoint and all that stuff, they're focusing on smart trainers. Yes, they can support power curves and stuff, but to be able to say you want a smart trainer for Zwift because that's what makes Zwift Zwift.
Shane, the thing is, if something's successful, which I think Zwift has been, the history of successful things is that they get copied. Now, have you picked up any rumours stalking the halls of Eurobike over the past few days of perhaps competitors to Zwift emerging?
A rising tide will lift all ships, and it will keep everyone honest. So if someone actually excels in one area that Zwift isn't, I'm sure everyone will look sideways and be able to increase what they're up to. But it's been very, very interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Ray, have you picked up any rumours of Zwift competitors?
I have, and I don't mind saying their name, but I just don't know where I put their business card. So otherwise I would actually say their name. I literally stumbled into people that have given me a little business card to try out a demo of something that's kind of aiming to compete with Zwift a bit, and that is the one right there. So a company called roadgrandtours.com. So they've got stuff going on there, and I think they said it was public, so we'll just go with it. I'm bad. Any PR is good PR, right? So they're aiming to compete with it, but more on a performance standpoint. I think they're trying to aim like a little higher end crowd almost. It'll be interesting to see their demos looked impressive from what I saw. Somewhat basic compared to the complexity of Zwift, which is, I think that's probably the challenging point. And I think, if you aren't maybe in the industry and don't understand how much money is behind Zwift, that's really important to understand. Zwift is not a garage band operation. Like, you have to, the rest of the trainer world is a garage band operation. Zwift has an immense amount of Silicon Valley money behind it and the Silicon Valley mindset behind it, which is perhaps even more important than money. It's that mindset of being a software company first and then focusing on the trainer side. It just so happens that all those guys are really big cyclists and have huge cycling connections, which is why they're successful, but they're operating like a Silicon Valley startup from a software development standpoint, from a money standpoint, and that puts everyone else in the trainer world at a bit of a disadvantage from executing, right? Because you don't have this kind of, we're going to throw a ton of VC money at it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, what's the next great thing, right? And so I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for people to compete with that.
That's really interesting. Do you think Zwift is sufficiently well-funded and well-developed and has all the skills in place effectively to crush opposition, Shane?
Look, I've got to say, I think this time last year, Zwift would have come along and would have had to have been meeting with people and introduced what the platform is and sort of try and get in people's ears. Whereas we've seen this time, you walk around these stands, I think Zwift themselves, they don't have a stand, but there's about 7 or 8 official demos of Zwift, plus other manufacturers using it to showcase their product. They've changed, just to sort of go back a little bit on before the question, is indoor riding now is a desirable experience that people are seeking. Now for trainer road or something for training, it's a tool they're looking for to be fit, but Zwift have really made it all social. People were looking for a social experience inside, and they're the only ones doing it. That's why the other software at the moment is the other riding experiences from Tacx and virtual training from Cyclops. It's good, it does the same task effectively, but I think the social side, and Zwift have just, as I said, absorbed all that community, and it's just built this real good cult following, I guess. It'd be really hard to move those people away, so we see road grand tours come along. That'd be niche, and I don't think people will move off Zwift very quickly. They might dabble in it, and might use it for specific rides, but I think people will still gravitate back to what brought them along to the platform and to that experience.
I think my take on that is, Strava was first. Strava got a community, and let's look at how successful Garmin have been in trying to move Strava users over to Garmin Connect. It kind of hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think another good example, though, or something to keep in mind, is really the trainer road folks, right? If you look at their numbers compared to Zwift, they're actually the same. Like if you look at actual subscriber counts, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to say what they are, but knowing...
No, well, but please do. I mean, I always ask these questions of the companies and they never tell us, so why shouldn't we speculate? And we like a bit of speculation on the podcast, so go ahead, Ray.
So I know what their numbers are. I'll say that if you can find public numbers for one of them, that they're virtually identical. Between the two companies, their numbers of actually paid subscribers, which is what matters at the end of the day, are virtually identical.
What are the subscriber numbers, Ray? As far these software companies never, ever tell you, but there are ways of working it out. I've seen estimates ranging from 100,000 down to 30,000. Where would you put it?
It's on the low. It's on the low end of what you said there. So it's towards the bottom half of your range. It's not 100,000. That's what Zwift wanted, right? That's what Zwift talked to their investors about, is being 100,000. I think that's totally achievable for Zwift, to be honest. I don't think that's something that I would have said 2 years ago it's not achievable, but I think the trainer market has made it achievable. I think if trainer prices for electronic control trainers as they were 2 years ago, still at $1,200 to $1,600, then no, it would not have been achievable. But now that you can get a FEC trainer from Tacx for, $500 US, 300 euros, probably still like $9,000 in Australia, then but that's made it achievable. Versus if it hadn't been, then no, 100,000 subscribers would not be achievable.
There's lots more Eurobike goodiness still to come, so stay tuned, Zwifters. Now, attentive listeners might have heard the Wahoo CEO hint at something big and new, and you might have thought I let that pass, but I didn't. I tried to get more, and I also pushed Tacx a bit on the same lines. But first, here's Chip from Wahoo again.
What are you working on, Chip? What is, the product that must be on the drawing board that's 2 years out? Is there one?
There is one. It's not 2 years out. It's probably sooner than that, and I can't tell you any more than that. But it'll be another category changer, which I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of follow-ons. We've got something up our sleeve.
And the new thing, is that in the indoor riding sphere?
It is.
I can tell by Chip's face he's really not going to tell me any more about that. But that does...
I would give everybody a year to work on it. I can't tell you.
But that does genuinely sound interesting. Just finally on that, when roughly might the secret be revealed?
We're trying for next year. It's still early enough in the process. I couldn't give you a definitive on that. But hopefully we'll be here next year with something exciting.
How many Neos have you sold?
Political question. I cannot answer. A lot. I think that we introduced the Neo last year, and I can only say that the demand was so impressive and high. So it was for us a great success, and it's still a great success. You know, the sales didn't stop at when the summer was starting. It just continued to sell, and it is a great product, especially because we introduced new functions in it. I think a lot of Zwift riders already experienced the road feel sensation, and that's so being well received here at the Eurobike show, because I haven't seen so many happy faces when they feel the cobblestones right through their legs with the Neo.
It is a good effect, and it's one I've experienced personally, and it kind of came out of nowhere from Tacx. Have you got any other surprises and tricks up your sleeve of this nature?
We do have something coming for the next couple of months, but I cannot say too much about that.
Give us a clue, Hilco.
It's all about feeling and sensation.
For now, I want to go into an area which I'm sure has been hotly debated by everybody attending Eurobike in this space, and that is the consistency versus accuracy arguments, particularly with regard, obviously, to power meters, but indeed to smart trainers. And historically, people have said, I don't care if it's not accurate as long as it's consistent. I don't think that holds water anymore because of the competitive atmosphere of Zwift. Ray, what's your sense of how that argument, consistency versus accuracy, is playing out with the manufacturers and indeed consumers?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think it holds water at all. I think we're seeing a bit of clarity in the trainer accuracy world. It's really interesting talking to Tacx and Wahoo and others, and they're kind of splitting accuracy almost into two pieces. They won't in a marketing sense, but sort of in a behind-the-scenes sense. They're saying, what is the accuracy for that first 10 to 15 minutes while it's warming up, and then what is the accuracy after that? I think Tacx would love to be able to say that their accuracy of Flux, for example, is plus or minus 1.5%, but they can't because of that first 10 minutes. And so I kind of step back and go, well, what does that really mean? And so if I were to, let's just say that Tacx is able to get the Flux. So Flux's stated accuracy is plus or minus 5%, which is the same as a Kickr Snap. It's the same as a couple of the trainers in that kind of $500 to $700 price range. If they were to get to the point where Tacx could say, hey, the first 10 minutes is plus or minus 3 to 5%, but once you get to 10-minute marker, we've got you down to 1.5%. To me, that's a game winner, because realistically, the CompuTrainer, which people have hailed as the best trainer for decades, that is plus or minus God knows what up until 10 or 15 minutes. Like, it's not just 2% or 4% or 5%. I mean, you can talk plus or minus 15 or 20% on the CompuTrainer in that first 10 or 15 minutes. So I think people have to kind of level set a little bit, where we don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole of like circling the drain of this 1% dream and forget kind of where we've come from and where the technology is today.
And what's the significance of this 10 or 15 minutes, Shane? Is that whilst the trainer is effectively warming up and settling down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ones with strain gauges in them, absolutely, they'll change. They'll get a settling period. Because you go from, effectively I had mine at -8 the other day up in Falls Creek. But in a normal home environment, you'll get temperature variations of probably 30, maybe 40 degrees on the internals, and that does change things in where they measure. One thing we haven't mentioned yet is the Elite Drivo. They're really selling hard on the accuracy of that model. It'd be very, very interesting to stack all these together. And again, we're here to see what's being announced. And I guess in a few weeks' time, maybe in a month or so, we'll be able to get a hold of these ourselves, both Ray and myself and the other people in the industry, and put these up against our known power meters and really see what their accuracies are. Because what we're getting here is that the marketing, and soon we'll see the actual reality of that. And I think we'll be able to I believe what they're saying to us, because there's a lot riding on this. If your power meter, or if the power meter measuring in your device isn't accurate, there's going to be a lot of rumbles about that in the media. And social media, as we've seen these days, is very, very powerful.
And do you think that is now making accuracy absolutely top of mind for trainer manufacturers? And do you think the Zwift effect of people racing and competing has forced that to the top of the trainer manufacturer's agenda?
Oh, look, we just have to look at Z power, which is the estimated power, and the wild inaccuracies of that. With some trainers, it can be good, but we do see variance, and that does cause a lot of problems with the racing when there's no parity there of competition.
The Drivo is really interesting. They've done really impressive stuff with accuracy. It's not, for my visual taste, it's not like the sexiest looking trainer. And I know that's like a personal thing. They would argue it's an Italian designed trainer.
It's ugly.
Yeah. Personally, for me, it's not my taste. I can see how it could appeal to folks. But that said, it's a really well technically designed trainer, and the accuracy is mind-bogglingly good. I would say at this point, it's equal to the Neo in terms of being super accurate, very, very strong. That's probably the standout there. And they've actually done third-party tests. I sent it to a German company that did a bunch of third-party testing on accuracy there, and they have their little certificate. I actually have a copy of it that says it's plus or minus 1%. And the testing I've done with 4 power meters on at the same time says it's the exact same thing. No drift, just simply it nails it and holds it.
Really interesting. And in fact, Elite have enjoyed something of a difficult reputation with accuracy over some of their older trainers. And this new range, particularly at the very top with its massive emphasis on very, very high accuracy, it looks to be a change of direction from the company. So I headed over to their booth to see whether any of what I've just said is true. So I'm now with Elite, who are in a very prominent position at Eurobike, just behind the enormous Shimano booth, and they've got a nice booth here, and very prominent in that booth is their new smart trainer, the Drivo. Or is it Drivo, Peter?
Good question. Americans will say Drivo. Being Italian, I pronounces E, so it's Drivo.
Okay, so it can be either way. And that was Peter Largo, or maybe Lego, who is the sales manager for Elite. The big sell on the Drivo or Drivo is that it is super, super, super accurate, and you're claiming 1%. How have you tested that, and how are you backing up that claim?
So not only us claiming the plus minus 1%, but also a third-party lab in Germany called PTB. It's the golden benchmark for anything that needs to be measured. And we have the certificate that you can see here in the office that declares a plus minus 1% accuracy with not only the Drivo, but also with our smart trainer, Kickr. They did all their testing with machines that have an accuracy of 0.0005 Newton meters. Tough to explain what that means, but it essentially means it's perfect.
It's fair to say that some of the legacy, some of the older Elite trainers have had something of a checkered reputation among Zwifters for their accuracy.
And you're right, previous models we had in the past were not as accurate. Actually, they were machines that were calculating the power output. So they were consistent in time, but didn't have any device to measure the power. Now we're super excited with the Drivo and Kickr because we now have the instrument that has this accuracy. So for us, it's super important that a rider, not only when he's outdoors, also indoors, has a faithful reading of what his power output is in order to even compare all the rides, both outdoors and indoors.
Now, I've just had a little ride on it, and obviously with such high levels of ambient noise and background noise here, it's very difficult to assess just how noisy or quiet it is, but my immediate impression was it was very, very quiet. What kind of tests have you done on quietness, and what kind of claims are you making for how quiet the Drivo is?
So the Drivo is ultra quiet, just like the previous model, the real turbo Moen, so that's always been a strong point of our trainers, direct drive trainers especially, where basically the noise is the chain itself and when you change gears. We've done lab tests, but even third party like D C Rainmaker has done tests, and you'll find across the net that our trainers are absolutely quiet.
What's the cost of the Drivo, and what level of discounting might we see from retailers? I mean, it's going to be a high-end machine. Are you confident of selling a lot? I know Tacx are selling a lot of Neos. A few years ago, you would have been thought crazy if people were paying close to €1,000 for an indoor trainer, but we seem to live in that world now. Are you confident there's a big market there?
Absolutely. The trend in sales in the past 24 months, thanks also to Zwift, has changed dramatically. It was 90% mechanical trainers, 10% smart interactive trainers. I'm not going to say that numbers turned around, but pretty close. We're now looking at 2/3 of the market that are interactive trainers, smart trainers. The Drivo will be $12.99 retail in Europe, equal in US dollars in the US. So in line with the other brands that are out there, a bit less than the Neo. And we're expecting huge sales. We've got the production line that's been going since July, so we've already shipped out the first product. The few that we've shipped out have already been sold, so it's just a question now of feeding the pipeline.
Is Elite confident that you can meet demand for these top-end trainers? In other words, if I want to buy one, can I buy one now?
Yes, we're confident, but we've been building trainers all year long. So historically, we would stop towards the end of the Northern Hemisphere winter. This year, we've gone full blast with production with all the other models in order to save time and space for the production of the Drivo and the Kickr, because we're confident that this is a winner. It's a hyper-aggressive market out there with a lot of competition, and customers, if you're not there, they'll choose something else. So we must be there, ready. Hence the reason we started shipping earlier. We announced the news earlier, and now production is fully dedicated to the Drivo and the Kickr.
Now, you've been very candid yourself how much the trainer market has changed in the last 18 months. And it strikes me, and a lot of people who Zwift, that there's one big reason for that, and it starts with a Z or a Z, and that's Zwift. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. Since the beginning, when we met Zwift the first time more than 2 years ago, we immediately saw the potential this new software had. Hence the reason we jumped on the boat immediately. And trainer sales have dramatically changed due to the Z, due to the Zwift. Equally, it's changed the habits of people using trainers. In such, we have people that never thought of trainers before using trainers, and we have people using trainers when they usually didn't use trainers. Therefore, not just that instrument to use when it's cold, icy outdoors and impossible to ride, but equally it's become an instrument to join a ride with my fellow friends around the world on a trainer indoors. So it's brought light to the trainer world, and we thank Zwift for that.
Do you use Zwift?
Yes, we all Zwift. We've got 4 trainers in our gym within the company. So we're 45 people in the company. I think probably 30 of them are Zwifters and riding on the trainers.
That's really interesting. And again, you've referred to this. It's very exciting times for trainer companies, but it's also very, very competitive times. Overall, has the transformation of the market benefited you? I think it's definitely benefited the consumer because we've got more choice than ever. Is it harder or easier for trainer manufacturers at the moment?
It's getting more challenging. So on one side, like I said, we thank Zwift for bringing light to the trainer world, increasing the market. I'll also say thank you, Zwift, for pushing us over the obstacles we had in the past. We've developed trainers, for example, the Drivo and Kickr, that probably 18 months ago we would have dreamed about. So it's pushing the boundaries. Equally, although it's made the market hyper competitive, which although is good for the consumers and also good for the manufacturers like us, because if you have the power to maintain your competitiveness, good. Otherwise, but we're super confident. We have a great team. We've got 16 engineers, all young and motivated.
Have you had a good Eurobike?
Yes, thank you. It's been very successful. It's challenging times, but we're in a good place.
Peter, thank you very much for your time. It's been really interesting to talk to Elite about their 3 new trainers. Thanks very much.
Now, the inevitable focus of that interview was the Drivo or Drivo. I wish I'd make up my mind on that. But there were 2 other trainers announced as part of the Elite refresh of the range. And I'll be bringing you some more news and hopefully a test of the Cora and the Bramper in upcoming episodes of the Zwiftcast.
Okay, well, look, let's think about what the impact of Zwift's huge announcement at Eurobike was. And that's the arrival of the Zwift software on the iOS platform. So it's going to be in beta from September. And it means that Zwift will work on your iPhone or your iPad. How big is this, Ray?
I think it's big for attracting a slightly different market. I think, if you look at the core Zwifter market, they're already on Zwift today. So this is sort of getting a different group of people to potentially use the product. It's appealing more to the mass market. I think in some ways, desktop computers and hooking that up to trainers is still kind of considered almost geekery versus that idea of just a tablet to quickly connect. So I'm guessing we're not going to see like a massive explosion of new Zwift people, but I think we'll see kind of people that might have been on the edge. It makes it more appealing when they're trying to demo it at trade shows, at all that kind of stuff, more than necessarily catering to the core Zwift audience.
My take on it, Shane, is that it's going to make it easier for people who just don't want to mess with computers. It's going to make it easier for people who travel, who might want to hook Zwift up in a hotel gym if they find the right kind of bike, etc., etc. But is it going to be a game changer in terms of size of audience and therefore numbers of subscriptions for Zwift?
I think, as Ray mentioned, there's going to be a broadening of the audience. So just the cost of entry or the barriers are really broken down with this. And being Bluetooth on the phone as well, it also has an internet connection. So you're getting rid of the dongle, you're getting rid of having to get an internet connection if you're already on the Wi-Fi. So it really opens up the doors a lot easier for a lot of people. So that's what I'm excited about.
I do think that the portability aspect is going to be a bit of a winner for Zwift. I think the kind of people who use Zwift do tend to be the kind of people who perhaps travel on business and, would just maybe go that little extra mile to get their trainer sessions in while they're away. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that turns out. So I'm here now at the Saris stand, which is very busy, lots of people on trainers. Saris also make the Cyclops brand of trainer, and I'm with whom? Who are you?
My name is Justin Henkel. I'm the category manager for Cyclops and also for PowerTap.
Okay, well, let's start by talking about the Hammer. Is production behind schedule?
Yes, as with most awesome things, you run into little bumps in the road where you didn't anticipate something happening, or something arrives late or doesn't fit quite right, and we're adapting as quickly as we can and aim to hit the trainer season in North America.
And can you outline the nature of the problem? Is it something fundamental, or is it just annoying fiddly things?
It's usually just annoying fiddly things. There's fundamentally the product is great, but not all of the time you get things in when you expect to get them in, and we're not one to cut corners in certain areas, so everything needs to be perfect. The testing needs to be done to make sure that when they finally leave our doors that it's the right product.
You very wisely not committed yourself to a date. You very carefully said the North American indoor training season. Can you be just a fraction more specific? I don't think anybody will hold you to it, but do you think we're going to see a significant number of units available pre-Christmas?
Yes, definitely before Christmas. We're actually aiming to get them out during the first part of fall, October, November timeframe.
And the early reviews and the early looks at the Hammer were very impressive. People were very, very impressed by what they saw at the launch. So why don't you take this opportunity to tell us just how good the Hammer is and what's different about it?
Well, our goal with this particular product was to maximize interaction with software. And the things that we targeted as the two big areas to focus on were the feel of the trainer, so the feel of the resistance and the highest level of inertia that we could possibly achieve, which is still not what you get outdoor on the road, but it's definitely bridging that gap. So we wanted to get the best feeling, most engaging experience for our customers.
Now, I notice you didn't mention accuracy there. That might be because accuracy is kind of built into the DNA of the company that makes PowerTap. Is that right? And how critical for you is the accuracy of the trainer?
Well, we're not actually using any strain gauges in this product, so it's not actually measuring power, it's calculating the power. But because we have another part of our business that is solely focused on power meters, we have a lot of know-how there, and we use all of the PowerTap products to actually test the accuracy on the hammer.
So how confident of accuracy are you?
Really confident. But since it isn't measuring power, if you were to compare the power output on the hammer to an actual power meter, there would be some differences.
Depends which power meter as well, I guess.
And it definitely depends what power meter. We can't measure it with our hub-based power meters because obviously you have to take the rear wheel off the bike, so there is no hub on the bike anymore. But all of the testing that we've done is shown the accuracy to be very, very promising. And to be quite honest, we're not going to put something out there that doesn't hold up our reputation.
Another area where, I mean, there's lots of areas where there's kind of intense competition between manufacturers now, but it strikes me that another area where there is competition is loudness or quietness. How does the Hammer rate there? And as we know, it's sometimes not just a matter of decibels, it's a matter of the nature of the noise that the machine makes. What's the nature of the noise? How quiet is it?
We've spent a lot of time trying to reduce the amount of noise that it's putting out, and we're using a special belt. There's a belt drive in the internals, and we're using a special belt and then tooth profile on our big gear to really, really reduce the noise. And I think you'll find that we're coming in at or near the quietest direct drive system out there.
Now, if somebody had said, even to you 2 years ago, that there would be ferocious competition in a sector of the market where people were spending over $1,000 on what used to be called a turbo trainer, or what would you have said?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really interesting. I think the software is really driving the popularity of having trainers that are now connected. And then all of those points that you mentioned before, so accuracy of power measurement, that real ride feel, are all extremely important, and that makes the quality of the trainer a lot higher, and then raises price points as well as those features and the development.
Now, you very carefully and very even-handedly said there it's the software that's driving this market. Is it really Zwift that's driving this market?
They certainly have the attention of the cycling market right now. Yes, definitely. We have our own software, and on the hardware side, which is what we are, our heart is developing and selling indoor training hardware. We do dabble in the software things, but we don't see Zwift as a competitor there. We see them as really a complementary entity to what we're doing.
It's not just the Hammer, of course. You've refreshed the range. There's a trainer that's a few less dollars, which is also commanding quite a lot of attention. Rainmaker had a lot of good things to say about that when I spoke to him today. Just run us through that one.
So that would be the counterpart, really. We use a lot of the same technology, and
Sorry, and this is called the Magnus, isn't it?
the Magnus, correct. We used a lot of the same technology from the Hammer in the Magnus. So we took the electromagnetic resistance system from the Hammer and applied it to a wheel-on trainer.
So this is competing really with the Kickr Snap and that kind of category.
It is, yeah, the same price range, basically the same feature set.
It's really tough, isn't it? All the way through the market. I mean, at the lower end, in the middle range, and at the top end, there are some seriously good trainers from some very, very good manufacturers. Is it a tough time to be in this market, or is it an exciting time to be in this market?
It's an exciting time to be in this market. I mean, competition is what drives us to make better products. And really, in the end, the customer is the one that wins.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Now again, the focus of that interview was the range-topping trainer, and I know that can make some people cross given its price. But a bit like Jura Ace and Ultegra, the tech from the top end can trickle down to the mid-range options, so it was useful to hear what's inside the Hammer. I'll also try to get hold of a Magnus to do some riding and testing.
The noise you can hear in the background possibly is a plane flying over with a banner. We're actually at the headquarters really of where airships were developed and built in Germany, and we've been already buzzed by a couple of airships today, and the guys tell me they've been a frequent sight here at Eurobike. So probably time to wrap up with Ray and Shane in this particular segment with this question really to both of them. What single thing has most impressed you in the indoor space at Eurobike over the past couple of days? And you get least thinking time, Shane.
Yeah, what has most impressed me? Look, okay, what has most impressed me is the attention this space is now getting. I won't say a product or anything like that, but everybody is now looking at what's happening, and it's a platform to demonstrate. I think the only thing indoor cycling can't really help promote is helmets, bike helmets. But everything else is the same. So there's a lot of attention around this space. It's kit, it's even gloves, people riding gloves for comfort, shoes, even ceramic bearings. I've seen ceramic bearings being demonstrated on. It just everything makes sense. So just the attention this space has been given is quite exciting to see. And I mean, this is in the last 12 months really, really ramped up. I'll hopefully come back in the next 12 months. I can't wait to see what's going to be around the corner.
Good answer. What single thing, product or just general vibe has impressed you the most, Ray, in this area?
Yeah, I'd agree that indoor training in general, seeing that exploding is definitely pretty big. I think a product standpoint, I'd probably have to go with the Flux is definitely up there in terms of being impressive, not necessarily from a pure technical standpoint, but more from a price to feature valuation type standpoint is impressive to see them hit that. It's something that they could have released at an extra $200 more and probably still sold it just fine. So to me, that's probably the most impressive thing.
Really interesting. I know people will want to know this, Ray, so it's eagerly awaited. It's always a sign of autumn, and that is the DC Rainmaker trainer recommendation extravaganza. When's that going to get up on the site?
I'm not sure. So I've kind of got two trains of thought here on this, and I'm kind of interested to hear people's opinion. Is one, I'm tempted to do a bit of a level set of where we are in trainers next week, and just doing kind of here's a roundup of what's out there. But here's a challenge I have, which is that I don't have final units of Hammer, of Magnus, of Flux, of Kinetic, there's a lot of options out there, and I really like to, before I do that trainer review, have at least ridden once on all those trainers on a final production unit, or something closer to what some of those are today. We talked the Flux it's a 3D printed exterior case right now. It's theoretically the same internals inside, but a lot can change in 2 months, and same with the Hammer and others. And so I'm kind of tempted to almost do a level set, sort of here we are next week, and then revisit things in early October once I've got all those units in. But again, that's kind of my thinking right now.
Sounds pretty sensible. And whatever goes up on the blog, I know it will be extremely well read and highly recommended and much shared. And now, Shane, one of the downsides of Eurobike has been criminally slow upload times, which means that for sure Ray's not been able to update his blog. He's got tons of stuff waiting to be published. I know you're the same with video. So what have you got that people are going to see and actually probably will be able to watch by the time the podcast is published?
Look, I'm hoping to get it up in a few days, but I've got a lot of footage of just simply walking through the front door and showing people what the Eurobike experience is about. This is very, very large, 1,300 plus exhibitors. There's a lot to cover. It takes me about 2 hours or so to walk through the main sections and probably 2 or 3 days to see everybody. So I've got a lot of footage of that and just general observations.
Great. Well, I'm sure, again, there'll be a big audience for Shane's YouTube channel catching up on all that stuff. Finally, Ray, do you enjoy Eurobike?
I do in a weird way. Like Eurobike is incredibly stressful for me. I
bet you get stopped a lot.
I get stopped a lot. It's not very efficient. It's the most inefficient thing I could possibly do in 3 days. It's funny. So people, I think, don't realize that actually. So it's one of those things that don't not stop me. I guess feel free to say hi. But you kind of sit there and you go, where does all the time go? And it's like I've got I think 10 companies I have to visit before I drive out of here today. And I don't have any meetings with anyone on purpose. I actually avoid scheduling meetings because I find them incredibly inefficient. Because I could schedule one-on-one. Half of that, I lose so much time back and forth, and stopping along the way to see people is something that, before you know it, it's an operation that should have taken 4 minutes has taken me 45 minutes. So Eurobike is super stressful because I've got that. I'm trying to get post published, and then this week was a nightmare with Wi-Fi. Download speed was fine, but upload is really tough. I can get out, like 2 or 3 picture type posts, but that's not who I am. That's not what I do, and so it's tough. You sit there and you're kind of like competing, if you will, against other media. And they're like, oh, we got our post up. I'm like, well, yeah, you copied your press release and put a picture in there, and that's not what I do. And so you're sitting there, and I've got like a super detailed post on the new stages by Computer. I've got a full in-depth review on the Garmin Verb action camera that just came out. But it's an action camera, so I can't like put a post up and not include all this video, and that's what it's about. And so to me, those are the things that stress me out. And then it's just you walk in every day, and I write until 3-4 in the morning and come back the next day and do the same thing. So I love Eurobike. I am just really horrible executing it in a non-stressful way.
Shane, I know you're off to ride the Stelvio when you leave here, but have you enjoyed your time at Eurobike?
It's been amazing, a real eye-opener, totally different than what I've seen before. And yeah, to be here with the people who actually make the decisions. In Australia, there's a lot of, they ship boxes out there and there's a sales guy, that's about it. But to actually meet the CEOs of companies and the people who make decisions and actually get feedback for them and to be recognised, I guess, in this space as well. It's been really great. So looking forward to working with them in the future as well.
The scale of this place is just mind-boggling. I mean, it is absolutely enormous. Absolutely anybody who is anybody in the bike industry is here. And the great thing about it is that there are business-only days, but it's also open to the public over the weekend. And if anybody is able to get to Eurobike, it's an experience, let's say that. One of the most interesting things, of course, to Zwifters is just how incredibly vibrant and innovative the indoor training space is, and that's definitely been reflected here at Eurobike, and I hope we've been able to reflect it in this special episode of the podcast. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks particularly to Ray for making so much time and being so generous with his time in not replacing Nathan. Nothing could replace Nathan, but at least being an American voice and an extremely well-informed one on the Zwiftcast. And so great to meet the llama in the flesh. Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And that, Zwifters, is that. The first time the Zwiftcast has been out on location, which required a bit of upskilling for yours truly. Hope you enjoyed it. I actually have more Eurobike goodness. It's a little less topical than the stuff in this episode, and I'm going to be saving it and using it in upcoming episodes. As ever, a word of thanks to Zwift for their support of the podcast. It's very generous, but a reminder that it doesn't influence or change a word of what's said.